We are live, a little delayed, but we are live here with Hollywood Dante Collinelli with his third mock draft of the year so far. Brought a heater with a 3-rounder for you. Dante, how are you doing? It's your work, so how are you feeling about it?
Doing great. I wish the Cardinals decided to wait on signing J.J. Watt a couple of days. That it didn't get screwed up. But I think outside of that, it's pretty good. It took me a long time, but I feel like every fan base will be completely and utterly happy with me. There will absolutely be zero complaints from anyone. So I'm feeling confident. You could say.
As the kids say, no cap. I honestly was, as I was making the graphics for this, I was like, man, I like this team's mock. I was like, this is my favorite one. I was like, no, this is my favorite one. And I probably said that close to 10 times. So it really, really is a good mock, no matter who you are, especially if you're a Steelers fan, because you're not replacing Ben Roethlisberger in this mock draft. So
No, can't do it.
they could not be happier, the people down in Pittsburgh and the Yinzers. Wasting no time, though, Dante, I figured we're going to do this a little bit differently since it's a 3-rounder. Dante's hearing this for the first time also. So we're going to go in alphabetical order by team. And I thought it was only fitting that Washington would be last because they were an under 500 playoff team, and that's just fitting for them. So,
Right.
Kicking things off, as you talked about, see, perfect lead in, you didn't even realize it. The Arizona Cardinals. Dante, why don't you run down these picks here and then talk about your man, Jalen Phillips here?
Yeah, I think for the Cardinals, the original strategy was obviously getting a running mate with Chandler Jones, and in my defense, the team agreed with me. They signed J.J. Watt as that was a need that they viewed as a primary need. Getting Tyson Campbell at 49, you just try and get some more talent in that secondary. Patrick Peterson leaving. And then I think getting Kenny Gainwell at 79 is actually one of my favorite picks of this draft. Just getting that type of running back in there with Kyler and Cliff Kingsbury, I think would be really, really fun. Kenyon Drake's a free agent, so I think you might want to inject a little bit more talent into the room. The one defense I'll make of the Phillips pick in light of them signing J.J. Watt is that if you want to go with like sub packages on third down, I think you bring Phillips into the game as an edge with Chandler Jones on the other edge, and you kick J.J. Watt inside, and you just put 3 good pass rushers on the field to try and get after the quarterback. That would be my defense of that pick. The other defense of that pick, and I wrote this in the mock because I literally hit like publish on this 5 minutes after J.J. Watt signed, and then I went back in and edited the little blurb. Yeah, I was incredibly angry at the time, but I went in and I was like, look, I mean, J.J. Watt's pretty old. I don't think he's the long-term answer at this pick. And I think you get Phillips at 15. Really, really good up-and-coming player. A lot of potential, length, speed, power, all the things you want at edge. He's got, some injury concerns. He had some concussions at UCLA, some off-the-field stuff. But, again, that's my defense of this pick. I probably would have went a different direction if I had known they were going to spend that much money on J.J. Watt. But, what are you going to do? You got 3 good pass rushers. You can't have enough in the league, honestly.
No, and again, in your defense here, even after the Watt pick, you don't know what's going to happen with Hassan Riddick. And he brought immense pressure off the edge for them, too. Obviously, bringing J.J. Watt in supplements that. But, no, like you talked about, look at the Eagles the year they won the Super Bowl. They had that beautiful rotation on the defensive line. Same thing can be done for Arizona. Going way back to when another Tom Brady upset, when the Giants beat Tom Brady and the Patriots, that 3-headed monster pass rush with OC, Strahan, and young Justin Tuck. It's obviously not the worst thing in the world to have 3 good guys who can get to the quarterback. Next in our alphabetical order mock draft here, the Atlanta Falcons. You didn't go quarterback, which a lot of people have been doing.
Right.
But where did you go here with this mock then, Dante?
Yeah, so the mock was more, I wanted to try and do more of what I thought would happen versus what I would do. I would have drafted a quarterback with the 4th overall pick, but I don't think the Falcons are going to do that, just based on some of the interviews I've listened to with their new GM, Terry Fontenot, and their new head coach, Arthur Smith. I think they're going to try and run this thing back with Matt Ryan and try and get the most out of him in that offense. So I went with Rashawn Slater with the 4th overall pick. He's a versatile offensive lineman. People that I've talked to, significantly more plugged in than me. Well, they just keep telling me that the NFL really likes Slater. He might get taken before Sewell. If that's something that's going to happen, I think this is where it will happen. Again, not what I would do, but this is more of a prediction. And then getting Rousseau at 35, I think we've gotten to the point now where I think people are underrating Gregory Rousseau. I think a lot of people are forgetting how important traits are at the edge rusher position. It's one of the few positions where we have empirical data that traits are just better than a lot of other, things, right? Athleticism, length, power. Rousseau has that stuff. He doesn't really know what he's doing yet. He's got to figure that out. But if you're the Falcons, I don't think you get to be picky where you get your pass rush from. And then I really, really love this 68th pick with Hunter Long, getting him in to be in Arthur Smith's scheme, which runs a lot of multi-tight end sets coming over from Tennessee. I think it's going to be really, really awesome to get Hunter Long in there alongside Hayden Hurst. So I think that gives them their kind of, the brand that they want to run with Arthur Smith, the power run game, if that's what they want to do. Long is a big body. He's a good blocker. He's also a good pass catcher as well. So I think you get a full package with him at 68. I didn't love this draft at the end of the day. Rousseau is a huge project. Slater, again, I would not have taken him there, but if you're going to run this back with Matt Ryan protecting him, he's not a mobile guy. He's not going to create for you. Need to make the pocket as clean as possible. And I think Slater can help you do that.
Another thing, too, to keep in mind, if you're the Atlanta Falcons, Hayden Hurst is going into the last year of his contract. I love Hayden Hurst from a player standpoint and off the field standpoint. Everything he stands for is mental health. We just don't know what's going to happen with Matt Ryan in that offense with Arthur Smith. Maybe he's the new Jonnu Smith, and maybe he's the old Delaney Walker, who knows. Next up in our mock, we have the Baltimore retro Cleveland Brown Ravens. This, as a Browns fan, is going to be bad for you. I love this draft because I don't think it's going to impact them a whole lot. But sell me on why, if you're Eric DaCosta, you're pulling the trigger on these three guys.
Yeah, I think with the first pick in Jason Owa from Penn State, he really just strikes me as a Baltimore Raven. When I watched his film, I immediately went, okay, you know what? This guy needs a little bit of development. And then I was going through this mock and I was like, the Ravens just have a knack for drafting developmental edges late in the first round, and they sit on the bench for a couple of years, and then they pop up in year 3 with 9.5 sacks. And you just kind of go oh yeah, that's a Baltimore Ravens. So that's how I kind of felt about Jason Owa. I'm not sure he's an instant impact player, but the Ravens strike me as a team that would be really, really invested in his traits and what he brings to the table from an athletic standpoint. I love the Tommy Tremble pick at 58. I think Baltimore was sorely missing a legitimate pass-catching threat on that TE2 spot with Mark Andrews. And I think Tremble comes in, and not only is he an underrated athlete who I think runs pretty good routes, I think he's a fine separator. He's actually my tight end 3 in this class. I have him ranked ahead of both Brevin Jordan and Hunter Long. Wow. I think he comes in, he provides blocking, he provides pass catching. So I love that pick. Tylan Wallace at 104. The Ravens need help at receiver. Wallace was the best one on the board. Really, really good at the catch point. I would have liked to get someone who's a bit more of a natural separator, but Wallace is a really good possession receiver. He's a really good ball tracker for Lamar Jackson down the field. They've been trying to find that guy with Marquise Brown and Miles Boykin. I think Wallace might be, he's definitely slower than those guys, maybe not as explosive, but he gets the job done down the field, man, and he's ultra physical. He strikes me as a Ravens mentality type player. They love those physical players all over the board. So I went with Wallace there as the best wide receiver left.
Yeah, and Wallace in the third, I would say, is probably my favorite pick out of that. And I would agree with the Jason Owa. Obviously, you have Calais Campbell there. He's getting up there. Jason Owa, by the time he blossoms into what he's going to be, Calais Campbell's obviously going to be on the back end of things. And Tremble, when you said you had him as your tight end 3, I think that's going to be wow. Because, obviously, I feel like, and this is not a disrespect to anybody, there's a lot of blind love there with Brevin Jordan because he came into the year. Some people even had him tight end 1 before Kyle Pitts just blew the roof
right
off the tight end group, and even the wide receiver group if you put him there. But no, I think that's picks 2 and 3 I really liked if you're Baltimore. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills. I did white for the lettering here for the white tables they smashed through, not red. Dante, take it away here.
Yeah, this one was tough. I think I broke the hearts of a lot of my Miami Dolphins followers with that first pick of Najee Harris. Again, not a pick that I would make, but I could see Buffalo going to the table here, and going like, look, we could not run the ball last year. And obviously, I actually think that's one of the reasons they were so good is because they just realized they couldn't run the ball. So they let Josh Allen go out there and win them football games. But getting Harris in the building might be able to change that. And he's a really good pass catcher as well, which allowed me to kind of swallow this pill. I'm incredibly anti-running back, especially in the first round. But Harris does provide a lot in the passing game. He's also a pretty decent pass blocker as well. So I was able to live with this. Baron Browning at 61, I really, really like. I just think he's their type of linebacker. Super versatile, good athlete, long, springy, explosive. You can play him at different spots and move him around. Pairing him with Edmonds and Matt Milano, I just think that gives you a ton of versatility. And the Bills' defense this year was really underwhelming. And I kind of kept that same vibe with the 93rd pick as well. I went with Hamilcar Rashed Jr. out of Oregon State. I think you get another player who's probably an edge linebacker hybrid. Again, he brings more versatility to the table. I don't think he's a traditional edge, but he is, he can slip through blocks and he is deceptively quick. I think you can get good pass rush reps out of him in sub packages and different things. So just addressing, that kind of second level, you get two hybrid players, guys who can move around on the second level. I think Shaw McDermott and Leslie Frazier really like those players. And again, like I would not draft a running back in the first round, but I could see Buffalo doing that just because like they couldn't do it. They couldn't run the ball this year, and I don't really know if it hurt them. It might have actually helped them, but NFL front offices, it seems like every year, right? We have a couple teams that go, we were really successful throwing the ball and we need to get back to running it. And I don't know. I just have a hunch Buffalo might be on that train.
Hey, Todd McShay today had 2 first-round running backs in his mock, so you having one here is not the end of the world one so far. Moving on here to our man Jared's Carolina Panthers. You didn't give him Mac Jones, spoiler, so he shouldn't hate this too much. Go ahead here, Dante.
Yeah, so I went with Trey Lance, traded up with the Miami Dolphins for the 3rd pick. This for me was kind of, I really wanted to see Lance in Carolina just because I think that's the best fit. As someone who gets the opportunity to cover Temple football, I can tell you the impact that Matt Rule has had on this program. An extremely, extremely good program builder. I trust him with a player like Trey Lance, who might need a little bit of time to develop. I actually think he's more pro ready than people give him credit for, but he might need a little bit of time to develop. And not only do I trust Matt Rule, but they also have Teddy Bridgewater in building. And I think David Tepper is going to get aggressive. So I passed on Justin Fields here. Again, I would not have passed on Justin Fields. I have been adamant in my defense of him as QB2 in this class, but it doesn't seem like the NFL agrees with me, which, okay, fine. Who the hell am I? But I think getting Lance here is really good for Carolina. You can sit him, you can start him, you have that flexibility. And then with the 39th pick, Melifonwu is not someone I'm that high on, but he strikes me as a Matt Rule type player in that he has really, really good traits. He moves incredibly, incredibly well for someone of his size, has length, has ball skills. He's decent as a tackler and run support. I thought he improved across the board there. This pick ended up being moot a couple of I guess like 30, 35 minutes ago. They franchise tagged Taylor Moton, but James Hudson could be a guy who eventually replaces him at right tackle out of Cincinnati. A really, really raw player, but very traitsy. Thought he looked really good at the Senior Bowl. He was literally playing defensive tackle in Michigan about 2 years ago. So he's a developmental player. If you don't want to pay Taylor Moton after the franchise tag, you draft a player like James Hudson to develop behind him. He can come in and replace him in his year 2. So I really like this haul for the Panthers. I think you get your quarterback of the future, you address a big need in corner, and then you also get a good tackle in the 3rd.
No, and if there's one offensive coordinator I trust to get the most out of Trey Lance, not Kyle Shanahan's a head coach, so I'm not including him in this. It's Joe Brady.
Right.
You saw what he did with Joe Burrow, obviously, with that passing game. I think North Dakota State really limited Trey Lance's passing ability with the scripts they do. But I think I would rather of the North Dakota State quarterbacks of the league right now, give me Trey Lance every day. Moving on here to the meh of the midway, the Chicago Bears. I liked this draft a lot when I was making this. And I was going to go on a little tangent here, but I will say Rashad Bateman to potentially replace Allen Robinson, no matter who the quarterback is, I absolutely love. But go ahead here, Dante.
Yeah, this one for me is one that I really like as well. I think Bateman's sweet spot is either the Washington football team at 19 or the Chicago Bears at 20. I don't think he's going to get past the Bears here. Even if they keep Allen Robinson, I think sticking Bateman on as the opposite X with Robinson would be awesome no matter who's at quarterback. Very good route runner, great ball tracker, great hands, good at the catch point. I think he'd be great. Wyatt Davis at 52. I still really like Wyatt Davis. I think some are down on him this year, but I still think that he's a very good starting caliber guard at the next level. Not a scheme specific player. You can use him in zone concepts and gap concepts. He's got power. He's got good movement skills. Is he an elite athlete? No, probably not. But the Bears really need help on the interior. And then I went with Spencer Brown out of Northern Iowa with the 83rd pick. They also need help at tackle. I think getting Brown in the 3rd round doesn't put enough pressure on him to start right away. I'd like to see him maybe add a little bit more mass to his frame. I think he's a little light in the pants with his anchor, but length, movement skills, all of those things are there. I thought he looked really good at the Senior Bowl as well after having basically the entire year off this year. So I like this draft for the Bears. I think you get 2 good offensive linemen. Bateman comes in and helps. Whoever is at quarterback, they should get some support from this draft. My guess is that might actually be Trubisky again, if I had to guess, but
exactly. And now that we got Melifonwu off the screen, because I have no idea why he was up there, Rashad Bateman's catch radius, I think, is something, whether it's Trubisky, Foles, Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston, whoever it is,
right?
I think that definitely helps them. And Spencer Brown, if you just Google Spencer Brown, Northern Iowa, and you look at the first picture, it's this itty bitty running back. And then there's like Andre the Giant, Spencer Brown, leading the way, blocking for him. And he looks very lean for being 6'9" and listed at 322.
Right.
It's absolutely insane. So
yeah, he looks like 6'9", 3. Like he's not 6'9", 300, but that's what he looks like when you pop on the film, man. Like the dude is just built like a pole. He's like a toothpick out there. It's wild, but he's obviously not that thin. I like him. I just think you need to mess around with his weight a little bit in year one. I don't think he's,
Spencer Brown, hit me up. I'll get you on that weight train real quick. Moving on here to the Joe Burrow bottomless of the AFC North Cincinnati Bengals. Again, another really, really fun draft as I was going through here. Take it away, Dante.
Yeah, they got lucky with Sewell falling to the 5th pick. Again, I had the Falcons go with Slater at pick 4, so I think this was a no-brainer. And, honestly, it worked out for me because I don't really know what I would have done if Sewell wasn't on the board here. Getting him, look, I think he's the best offensive tackle in this class. Last time we saw him on the football field, he was 19. I'm older than Penei Sewell, which is weird for me because I'm only 21. So,
don't eat.
Yeah, dude, it's weird for me, man. This is like the first time a really good prospect. Yeah, this is weird. I'm not all the way there yet, but this is the first time where a really big prospect is not older than me. Rondale Moore at pick 38. He was my wide receiver 1 after the summer. I just think you have an elite athlete, really, really good yak player. I think he's a better route runner than people give him credit for as well. And I think a lot of his, schemed up touches was just look, we have David Blau at quarterback. We just need to get the ball into Rondale Moore's hands as quickly as humanly possible. I think he can do more than his Purdue tape shows. So I'm comfortable, even with the injuries, taking him inside the top 40. And then getting Trey Smith at pick 69. Nice. I really, really enjoyed his film as a guy he's just going to create consistent vertical movement on the line. And the Bengals have multiple upgrades that they need to make on the offensive line. Pairing him with Sewell on the same side of the offense should clear running lanes and maybe get Joe Mixon going again, which would be huge for whenever Burrow comes back from his injury.
Yeah, no, I think that's it's such a boring draft for NFL fans necessarily. But if you're a Bengals fan, you want Joe Burrow upright. And Trey Smith and Penei Sewell is the first step in that. Before we move on here to my Cleveland Browns, just to set the age thing for when it really hit me, I looked back real quick. I pulled up the 2017 draft.
Right.
Older than Myles Garrett. And I am 3 weeks older than Jared Goff.
Oh, wow.
And I'm only 2 months younger than Jameis Winston. So But at least I'm not our boy Tyler Fornes, who shares a birthday with Dick Butkus, and he's as old as Dick Butkus. So at this point here, though, moving on to my Cleveland Browns. Give me the defensive backs. Give me all of them. Go ahead, Dante.
Yeah, that was kind of my strategy. I'm not sure if a safety is going to make it into the first round, but I think Trayvon Merrick has the best shot, the safety out of TCU. Really, really good movement skills. I think he has good range over the top. He can play single high, and you can feel comfortable. I think he'd be great in a two-deep zone. You get him and Grant Delpit back. That gives you a ton of versatility. Merrick is good in deep zones, but he can also play in the box, so you can move him around. Elijah Molden's a player. I haven't gone a full film evaluation on him, but based on what I've seen watching other Washington players, I think I'm going to love him. One of the best slot corners, I think, in this class, probably ultra physical, really smart. And that was the kind of the thing that popped to me when I was watching like some of their defensive linemen. Some of the plays that Molden made were just really impressive, really, really good in short zones. I think he actually has decent length for a smaller player. I think his arms might check the box, which will be good. Not sure you want to play him on the outside, but I'm not sure the Browns, necessarily have the ability to be picky. And then I went with Tommy Tongiai, the interior defensive lineman from Ohio State with the 89th pick. Just a guy that I think he can provide really, really good support on first and second down as a run defender. He's stout. He's smart. He can two-gap if you need him to two-gap. Just a good guy to have in rotation.
A plus.
Thank you. I was a little bit worried. I don't know if my Browns guy is going to like it, but I'll take it.
I like Elijah Molden, and it's a lot of it has to do with my buddy Roman Tomasoff from RealDog.com, who covers the Huskies. He talks to me about Onwuzurike. He talks to me about Molden, Keith Taylor, all of them all the time. And Molden, he thinks, could even be a really good nickel, which I'm fine with that for Cleveland. Because like you talked about, you're not going to put him outside. But that middle of the field, like if you watch the Browns playoff game against the Chiefs, Kelsey and Tyreek didn't hurt us outside. It was all across the middle. And I'm fine with Molden using his length there just to break up things. I'd even put him at linebacker. Our linebacking core is that bad. So moving on to, I chuckled when I put this together. Not Patrick Surtain is all that's going to be seen by boss man, Mr. Tyler Browning. You're going to give him his second heart attack within the year, but let's see if you can sell it to him.
Yeah, look, I went with J.C. Horn with that 10th pick, and I did pass on Patrick Surtain. The main reason for that, honestly, is like I just wanted to shake things up a little bit, and I think the other reason was I think the Cowboys could really benefit from having a actual person with a pulse in the secondary. And if you've watched J.C. Horn's film, the man is a shit talker. I mean, he really just is.
He's a point with the picture.
Yeah, I mean, he really is just feisty as hell. He's incredibly physical. I think Dallas needs a corner with a little bit of edge to them. And Patrick Surtain's great. I have Surtain ranked higher than Horn on my board. But he is, and he's fine physical, but J.C. Horn's just a different breed, man. And I think the Dallas Cowboys really need that in the secondary. With the 44th pick, I went with Alex Leatherwood. I think they do need to address the offensive line at some point. I know some Dallas fans are off of that, and there's a couple that we work with that might not be happy with this pick. But I think getting Leatherwood, a guy who provides both guard and tackle versatility, could be really good for Dallas. He can come in and really just be that ultra backup. If Connor Williams goes down, well, you can plug him at guard. If Tyron Smith comes back and he's not the same guy, well, then you've got Leatherwood to play tackle, and eventually he develops into a full-time starter at one of those spots. I think I redeem myself here with Alim McNeil, the defensive lineman from NC State. He's a big Dallas Cowboy fan favorite. Good nose tackle, good one-tech projection to the next level, very, very stout, good hand usage. I think he's an underrated athlete. I'm kind of a little bit skeptical of his pass rush upside, but his athleticism does project well to at least being able to gap penetrate from that spot as a one tech or a nose. So I do enjoy that part about his game. His ceiling might be a little bit capped, but we'll see. If he can develop a go-to pass rush move, he could really be a steal in this draft because that would unlock so much of his game.
I remember last year at the Senior Bowl, it was NC State's Laurel Murchison, who a lot of people left going, wow. And that was somebody that Joe Marino from Draft Network talked about at first. And if you watch that defensive line at NC State last year, you saw McNeil at the same time. And it's one of those ones where there's nothing better when you're trying to watch for one guy and there's somebody else who keeps distracting you. That's Alan McNeil here for everybody. Moving to the John Elway, George Patton, Vic Fangio, all the old guys in the room, their draft here for the Denver Broncos. Another fun one, and I really like the third-round pick here. Take it away, Dante.
Yeah, for me, the ninth pick was easy. Caleb Farley, I think, is the best corner in this class. I actually have him ranked much higher than the other two consensus guys. I have Horn and Surtain kind of grouped together, and then a gap to Farley at CB1. Really good athlete, really good ball skills. Length, quickness, speed, everything you could possibly ask for in a quarterback prospect you get with Caleb Farley. With the 40th pick, I went with Ronnie Perkins, a player I haven't seen a ton of, but he's getting a lot of buzz. I think Denver could use another edge to kind of pair with Von Miller, Bradley Chubb. Perkins strikes me as their type, just given that he's incredibly explosive, has good hand usage, stuff like that. So I went with him with the 40th pick, took a bit of a shot there. And then with 71, Dylan Moses, I think is probably a little bit better than people are harping on him on right now. I don't think his season was as bad as some are saying. It definitely wasn't good. He's definitely taken a step back. But one thing that we've consistently seen from Vic Fangio in Denver is that he gets the most out of linebackers. I mean, he's getting like plausible play out of Josie Jewell, who doesn't even have all 10 fingers. So I think you can get a good amount of play out of Dylan Moses, who's incredibly smart. He's still a good athlete. Denver could use that upgrade at the second level. I went all defense here. I think they can upgrade that, get Fangio some more toys to play with. Drew Lock, if he's the quarterback at the start of next season, and all the playmakers are healthy, Denver might be able to push for that second place, record in the AFC West. But I think this class would really help them. I think it would be 3 players who would see a ton of playing time early.
Yeah, no, and that's something I can't remember what I was listening to. They were talking about a Vic Fangio defense, needs to have its linebacker. And he does a great job with them. In San Francisco, he had Navarro Bowman, who he coached up. In Chicago, he turned the questionable pick of Roquan Smith, turned him into a Pro Bowler. And then if you get Dylan Moses was a top 10 pick before his knee blew out, and then the catastrophic year that followed. So if you get somebody like that with what we saw at one point in the third round, I think if anyone's going to get that 2019 out of Dylan Moses, it'd be Vic Fangio. Moving on to the Motor City Dan Campbells, the Detroit Lions. Again, you listened to my biting the kneecap speech during our last mock draft show with a trade here at 12. Take it away, Dante, for your Detroit Lions at the present moment.
Yeah, so I guess this spoils the mock trade that I did. I had the 49ers trade up. I won't reveal the pick just yet, but I had the Lions move back here to pick 12 and grab Micah Parsons. Like you said on the mock stream, and I wrote this in the piece, I just think he's their type of player. He strikes me as the type of guy who would bite kneecaps. I don't know what else to tell you. And then with the 41st pick, I went with Nico Collins, a player that I think kind of projects as a similar role to Kenny Golladay if they're not able to bring him back. I'm not making that comp, but as far as like he's an ex-receiver who's going to win downfield at the catch point, that's what you're getting out of Nico Collins. I didn't love his film, but he impressed me at the Senior Bowl. So I think he could go in this range. And then I went with Jackson Carman at the 72nd pick. Again, a player who I think is probably a tackle, depending on scheme. If you really want to kick him side to guard, you can. Very, very powerful. Really, really good first punch, good length, good size. A lot of the things that you want. I think he finds a way to get on the field for them at some point, whether that is tackle or guard. And then I picked up an extra pick. I went with Keith Taylor here, the cornerback out of Washington. You pair him with Jeff Okudah. Taylor, not the best movement skills on the board, but he's incredibly big. And I feel like he's somebody that Dan Campbell will like. His run defense scares me. He's really not much of a run defender. That part of his game does scare me. But you get a guy with really, really good length, pretty solid technique. You can kind of play him in a cover 3 scheme and have Jeff Okudah on the other side. So I think this is a pretty good haul for the Lions. I feel good about a lot of these guys making contributions early, depending on what they decide to do at tackle here in the offseason. Carman might not see the field, but the other 3 guys I think certainly will, and Carman will definitely see it eventually.
Yeah, no, and I think, too, like you talked about with Taylor and everything being opposite Okudah. Okudah, I'd like to see, had a very, very quiet rookie year. Didn't have the best rookie year. But I think that Micah Parsons, you could even have him coming off the edge. I think he's just going to make a total difference in that defense. This I actually, and there's only 2 picks here for Green Bay. Again, and I'm going to say this a lot. It was one of my favorites. Dante, why don't you talk about the pride of Kalamazoo in South Bend, Indiana?
Yeah, so I had another trade up here. I didn't like any of the picks for the Jets at 23, the way the board fell, and I really wanted to get Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, the linebacker safety hybrid from Notre Dame and Green Bay. I just think the Packers defense is really, really lacking a presence on the second level, whether that's the box safety, whether that's a linebacker playing, more of a traditional role. They just don't have much presence on the second level. Owusu-Koramoah gives you good pass coverage ability in the overhang spot, really, really good length. He's instinctual. He's fast. He's going to pursue the ball. He's good at tackling, hard hitter. I just think he just gives them juice on the defense, especially at that second level. It's just not something that they had. It's not something that they valued under Mike Pettin, and I'm kind of hoping that they go that route because the rest of their defense is pretty solid. I like their front four. I like some of the pieces that they have in the secondary, Darnell Savage and Jair Alexander. So getting Owusu-Koramoah for me, this was, they didn't give up much. I forget what the mock trade was off the top of my head. It might have been like an extra third or something, or like a third next year or whatever. So not much. I think it's worth it. And then getting Dwayne Eskridge at pick 62nd for me. I mean, I just think that would be a ton of fun watching him catch deep balls from Aaron Rodgers. Kind of put him into that Randall Cobb type role, right? A lot of manufactured touches, a lot of stuff that he can do in the slot. I think Eskridge showed that he is incredibly physical for the position. This is not the type of receiver that the Packers typically go for. So again, this is me taking a kind of a shot in the dark that they're going to change their model at the position because this is not the receiver that they have shown that they like. But I think they need somebody like this. They need somebody with some speed, somebody who can take the pressure off of Devontae Adams, force defenses to give a crap about anyone else. And I think they could really open this thing up. And I think Eskridge gives you that ability.
Yeah, Eskridge, Green Bay's got to go receiver. And I think if you don't go first round with somebody who maybe they're like a Terrace Marshall or whatever, I think Dwayne Eskridge is a fantastic compensation there for Green Bay. Now, this was my favorite graphic to make, not the duplicate Melifonwu one. The Bill O'Brien draft, as we will, for the Houston Texans. This is what you get, Texans fans.
Yeah, just landed.
Talk about their pick.
Their single pick. It was funny because when I was doing the mock and I got to the Texans pick, because this is the first time I've gone 3 rounds. And I kind of got there and I was like, I forgot that the Texans were a football team because, like, as a draft analyst, the only thing that I think about is Deshaun Watson in a Dolphins jersey. So I forgot.
As a Dolphins fan, that's
right,
all you think about.
Right. Yeah, I was trying to hide that there. But, I think getting Dickerson here is incredibly good. Dickerson's a top 30 player overall on my board. I don't factor for injuries, which is why he's so high and why I think he's going to go lower than that. I love his film. I mean, he's an ass kicker in the middle, man. Consistently moves people. Really, really good power. I think he's significantly better than Deontay Brown, who seems to be getting all the street cred right now at the position. Dickerson is incredible with his technique. He's strong. He's powerful. Good length. If you're Houston, you just need to draft good football players. And I thought he was the best player left on the board. Obviously, the injuries are concerning. But here at pick 67, I think they capitalize on good value.
Well, and I think, too, if you're Houston, one, obviously not having a first and a second round pick.
Suboptimal, but I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Right, and you're not expecting to turn anything around right away. And who knows what Deshaun Watson's going to be. You're obviously in a rebuild. You got a new GM. You got a new head coach. I think Dickerson could be an anchor, like you talked about, for that offensive line, if not now, later. And it's one of those things where why not have a complete and utterless, total BA, mofo, whatever Dan Campbell language you want to use there. I love Landon Dickerson, and I'm a Florida fan, and the SEC title game injury was gut-wrenching because that game was in hand. But to see him come back out for the national championship was something special, too. Going on to Colts fans, and you don't get a quarterback here, but you still got Carson Wentz. Whoever is going to be under center for the foreseeable future looks like they get some potential. And a name that Peyton Manning's familiar with, not in the most essential way that you want if you're a Colts fan, Go ahead, Dante.
That was a good one. Yeah, so for me, Darisaw here at the 21st pick was they need to get a left tackle in there to protect Carson Wentz. We saw what happens this year when Carson Wentz is not properly protected. I would argue that he's always been incredibly erratic in the pocket anyway. So getting Darisaw here I thought was a must. I would have reached on a tackle here regardless. Darisaw, very powerful, good athlete, good length, brings a ton to the table. I think he can start early. And then with the 54th pick, I took one of my favorite players in this class, period. I love Asante Samuel Jr. I think he can play on the outside, specifically in the Colts scheme. They do a lot of cover 2 stuff where he would be tasked with playing in short zones. And I think that is exactly where he's going to thrive. Incredibly, incredibly good instincts, just like his dad, by the way. Really, really good instincts. I was quite young when Asante Samuel was tearing up the league. I don't even remember him on the Patriots. I just remember him on the Eagles. So that should tell you something. But I love his son, man. He's incredibly good in short zones, really good instincts, good eyes, good feet. I think he'd really thrive in this scheme. And I think you get away from playing, the Xavier Rhodeses of the world at some point. And if you want to kick him to the slot, kick him to the slot. I think he'd be great there too.
Nothing was better than playing early Madden, and you would pick the Patriots, and you would have this Tom Brady offense with no receivers. But then you would get on defense, and you would have a Willie McGinnis, you would have a Richard Seymour. But then most importantly, on 2 corners, you would have Ty Law, Hall of Famer, and Asante Samuel. You couldn't pass the ball. And then you had Rodney Harrison out deep at safety who would just break your jaw if he came down across the middle. So, no, it's Samuel, and you talked about his instincts. I think it was it you the other night I was talking to us about? Might have been Ben or Austin. I said if he was even a safety, I think he would be probably the top safety in this class, because you talked about those instincts. He can just roam, let him do his own thing, and it's just absolutely tremendous. If you're a Colts fan, pairing him with Blackman as your secondary after what you've been used to with the injuries of Malik Hooker and the missed picks with I can't remember who's such a good corner out of Florida. Quincy Wilson.
Quincy Wilson.
we
named 2 Florida busts.
Yes. So you'll be very, very happy with Asante Samuel. Going on to the next pick, it's not Zach Wilson at 1. We're not having any mix-up here. We're not listening to the noise. We're sticking in our groupthink bubble. Go ahead here, Dante.
Yeah, pardon me for doing groupthink. I think it's incredibly funny when draft Twitter decides to use that as a defense of people. But anyway, that's a topic for another day. I don't want to piss anyone off. But Trevor Lawrence with the first overall pick, I think is obvious. He's quite good. I'll just end it there. Went with Sam Cosmi at 25. I still think they need to invest in tackle, whether or not Greg Robinson comes back. Cosmi, I watched his film last week. I liked what I saw. I think that, yes, is he a little bit light in the pants? Is his anchor a little bit suboptimal? Definitely. I don't think it's as bad as people are acting like it is. Like, they're acting like, if somebody blows on him, he's going to fall over. And that was just not what I saw on film. Was it great? Could it be improved? No and yes. So I think that there's some room to grow, but I think you're getting a player with really good length, really, really good feet. He's very experienced pass setting, and I have a feeling Jacksonville's going to want to throw the ball around the yard with Trevor Lawrence next year. And then getting Greg Newsome at 33, not a player I've done a full film eval on, but what I've seen is you're getting in a tremendously smart corner, and that's the type of player I want opposite C.J. Henderson, because Henderson was a risk taker at Florida. I'm sure you can speak on that a little bit. He has great ball skills. He is willing to go get the football, and he might make some mistakes here or there. Newsome's not that type of player. Newsome is sticky, smart, conservative. He's the perfect CB2 to CJ Henderson. And then I went with Pat Freiermuth at the 45th pick. I think people are forgetting about how good Freiermuth's film was in 2019. This was a player who proved he could block. This was a player who proved he could win as a route runner and a separator down the field. I think he's an underrated athlete in this tight end class. He's my clear-cut tight end too. And then with Richie Grant at 65, I'm not as high on him as some other people are. I think some people have him as like safety 1. I don't see that, but what I do see is a player who has good range over the top and can at least provide you with good play in deep zones. And I think Jacksonville needs that. They don't really have that right now. They inexplicably traded Rodney Harrison for a day 3 pick to the Browns.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, really great job for you guys. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what Jacksonville was thinking there. Ronnie Harrison's a very good football player, so I think getting Grant in the building will kind of help replace him.
Yeah, no, and I think too, like Urban Meyer, I think is going to stick with his roots. Like you threw in Freiermuth there, I think that makes 100% sense, and it's something that Jacksonville has not had a tight end since Mercedes Lewis, and even then it wasn't that
Wow.
great of a tight end there. I can't go older than that because I'm sure you don't remember Byron Leftwich and David Garrard, Jacksonville Jaguars,
I
but
actually do. I
I'm
have
sure
memories of
why
Leftwich and David
youngin.
Garrard.
We'll to the team that got second place in the NFL last year here now with the Kansas City Chiefs. Again, I think this was one that, as a team that's coming up as a Browns fan, and anyone else who's an NFL fan, you don't want to see the Chiefs get a mock like this because I think this is absolutely tremendous, especially the sneaky Tutu Atwell pick there.
Yeah, we'll get to that one. I think for me, kind of just grouping the top two picks here, I really just took the best two offensive linemen on the board. Jalen Mayfield was there at 31. I think you get tackle guard versatility with him. Very, very young player. I liked what I saw out of his technique for a guy who just has not played a lot of football, but I thought he was pretty advanced for a younger player. Creed Humphrey comes in. I think he gives you starting level reps right away. You don't have to change much with his game. He's stout. He's a good mover. He's incredibly smart. The Chiefs don't need all-world offensive line play. They just need solid guys, and Creed Humphrey is the epitome of solid. That 94th pick, man, I've seen Tutu Atwell go in the first round. I'm going to be honest, I did not see that at all with his film when I did his final film eval, but I think getting him for the Chiefs here is just a ton of fun, and I wanted to inject another element of speed into their offense. Not that they need it, but I think Mecole Hardman's been a little bit underwhelming, and I think they could use another guy here. Maybe they'd prefer an outside type at receiver, kind of replace Sammy Watkins. But I just really feel comfortable. This was more like, if Tutu Atwell is going to be successful, it has to be with a team like the Chiefs. Like for me, there's a very, very few select teams that I feel comfortable mocking Tutu Atwell to, and the Chiefs were one of them. So that's why I did this. I think Atwell goes higher than this probably. I'm not the biggest fan of his game, so I was a little bit hesitant to mock him earlier.
And not to take the focus off you, Dante, here, but I'll throw in my 2 cents of Atwell. I think with Kansas City. I think that's a perfect fit for him. You talked about the Mecole Hardman pick kind of really not being that explosive as they wanted. They've had flashes here and there. But Atwell, if you watch the Pitt game, he makes several amazing catches, deep balls with his hands, strong hands. But he also has a couple of drops. And it's one of those things where I feel like they'd be getting the same thing with Mecole Hardman. So it kind of just be them taking another ticket at the deli and seeing if they get prime rib that's fresh or if they're going to have prime rib from last week. Someone who's not used to having prime rib is the Los Angeles Chargers here. I don't know why I said they're not used to having prime rib. Just absolutely started out of nowhere.
It's a no fans joke, I guess.
Hey, exactly. See, you knew what I meant and you picked
up.
Yep,
I got
there. You. So take it away there, Dante.
Yeah, one of my best friends, Saray Poole, who I do Inside the War Room with on NFL Draft Bible and SI. He's a big Chargers guy. I consulted him with this draft. He told me I need to draft an offensive lineman with each of the first 2 picks, and I did not because I took Patrick Surtain with the 13th overall selection. Once I passed on him with Dallas, I kind of had it in the back of my head that I didn't want him to fall past the Chargers. I think pairing him with Casey Hayward and Derwin James gives new head coach now. I almost called him a defensive coordinator, but he's the head coach now, Brandon Staley. Gives him a ton of guys to play around with on the back end. I think that would be a ton of fun. And then I still address the offensive line with 2 players that I think can come in and start early. And that was kind of my directive here with trying to make these picks. I wanted to get players who weren't projections. I wanted to get players who I thought were pretty solid already that can come in and contribute right away. The first of which, Leon Eichenberg, the tackle out of Notre Dame. I really liked his film. I think he's one of the more technically sound tackles in this class. Some of the guys are better athletes than him. There's no doubt about that. But I think Eichenberg comes in and gives you a lot more in year 1 than some of the other guys might. Josh Myers at center. I think that he can come in and provide center and guard versatility. I think he can play guard. I think he's big enough. I prefer him at center. The Chargers need an upgrade there regardless. So I think that was an easy one. And then I got Jabril Cox here at pick 97. I imagine he goes higher than this. The mock draft machine was very generous here. A lot of the linebackers fell. That was kind of a theme for me as I was going through, and I pushed Cox down the board and I didn't even realize it. So when I came around here, I was very pleasantly surprised to find someone as athletic as he is on the second level at 97.
Yeah, I definitely think if you're able to get Fletcher Cox there at pick 97, had to check there. I definitely think that's not something to be flaccid about. So I think that's something that if you're a Chargers fan, that totally went over your head. You have no idea. Anyway, I think Jabril Cox is somebody that this linebacker group is very underwhelming.
Oh man, I know,
right? We got to keep things heavy here. But no, I think Jabril Cox there, that linebacker group's been very underwhelming. If you talked about Eichenberg at the second pick for them, I absolutely love because he has first round flashes, but you can't. There's nobody if Rashawn Slater's gone, Penei Sewell's gone at 13, which I would bet my life's earnings is going to happen. I think Patrick Surtain's a very nice consolation prize at 13. Going cross town or wherever they're at in SoFi Stadium, in that new stadium they couldn't have any fans in, sadly. The first round pickless Los Angeles Rams, until my kids go to college, have several fun picks here, including a very fun name here at Edge there at 103. Take it away, Dante.
Yeah, I'm not even going to bother to pronounce that. But here's a fun anecdote for you. We're doing more age anecdotes. I will go through pretty much all of high school and college without the Rams making a first-round pick. So do with that what you may. With the 57th overall pick, I went with Nick Bolton. I think they need some more juice on the second level. Nobody's going to give you more juice than Nick Bolton. He hits like a freight train. He's incredibly fast. I think he's pretty good in short zones as well. So I think he's going to give them a nice infusion of talent. They need to find Andrew Whitworth's replacement. So at 101, I'm with the best offensive tackle on the board, my namesake, Dante Smith, out of East Carolina, player I got to see live in 2019. I thought he was pretty good. He went up against Quincy Roche when Quincy was still at Temple. And I think he's developed nicely. I thought he had a really, really good showing at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was the best tackle at the event that week. And then I went with Victor D. We're just going to call him. I don't want to butcher his name on a live show. I should have Googled it before I got on, but I forgot. I always forget that the Rams have picks because I'm not used to going this deep into the draft. But I did watch his film, so I do know a little bit about him. Technical pass rusher, good hands, decent speed, good power. I think the Rams could use a little bit of help there. They've tried to take, they took Terrell Lewis last year in the second round, I believe, and he didn't, he was kind of banged up. He's always had injury concerns. I think Victor will give them a little bit more of a solid power rush presence on the outside. So I actually really like this mock for the Rams. I think they get players who can develop and potentially contribute early in that scheme, and they need to make the most of these picks because their Super Bowl window is right now. Because when this thing crumbles, the Rams are going to be bad for a long time unless they turn over the bottom of this roster with picks like this. So I feel good about this one. The Rams are tough though, tough team to mock for.
Yeah, and I would 100% agree here. And the one thing I'll add, too, for another age anecdote, my son Elijah was born August 6, 2016. He has not been alive for a Rams first-round pick because Jared Goff was their last one in April of 2016. My oldest child has not seen – my oldest child has seen more Cleveland Browns playoff wins than Rams first-round picks. That's an even better way to put it.
Wow, that's mind-blowing.
Right? Now, next is the Las Vegas Raiders, and I have to say, the running joke was with Al Davis, he always took the speed guys, and it was whoever was the fastest, that's who they were going to take. I feel like since Mayock and Gruden have gotten together, it's whoever the athletic freak is and whoever the big defensive lineman is. Right. And it's something that you do hear with these two picks you have.
Yeah, I watched when I was doing my film work when the Dolphins played the Raiders. The first thing that popped out at me was just their inability to produce any type of, decent pass rush, which is ironic for a team that spent the 3rd overall pick on an edge rusher a couple of years ago, but I digress. I had them trade up with the Minnesota Vikings here to get Kwity Paye. I didn't like the board for the Vikings. 4-0, your team is a absolute nightmare to draft for. I mean, just absolutely terrible. I'm sorry. I hate your team. But my dad's also a Vikings fan, so sorry, Dad. But trading down here with the Vikings, Kwity Paye, it just strikes me, like you said, as a Gruden Mayock player. I would not shock me at all. Like this, he's pretty much already a Raider in my head. Like I've mocked him to the Raiders, I think, in every single one of my mock drafts, all the way back from maybe like October. I think I did the first one. And then with Levi Onwuzurike here with the 48th pick, I didn't love just doubling down on the defensive line, but they need a pass rush, man. They got to get that thing figured out. They've made picks in the secondary. They're trying to develop some young corners, so I didn't want to go there again. They spent money in free agency at linebacker with Kwiatkowski, so I didn't want to go there again. So I went with Onwuzurike. I think you get a very, very long athletic player. Washington's scheme did him a little bit of a disservice. I think he's better than what he put on film, and he's a guy that they're going to have to develop, but they need to start hitting on these defensive line prospects, man, because there's been too many swings and misses, and they cannot produce a pass rush, and it's killing their secondary. It really is. It's making the job of these young corners way too hard.
I think my new niche is going to be finding fun facts and phrases in terms of not making any more Cox jokes with the team we're discussing. And you talked about the 3rd overall pick a couple years ago, Clelin Ferrell. He has 6.5 career sacks in 26 games.
Not
Josh
great.
Allen, who was the 2nd edge rusher in that class, picked the Jaguars. I think I picked at pick 7 because it was back-to-back years that Josh Allen's won at 7. Josh Allen in his first 8 career games has more sacks than Ferrell does in his entire career so far. So imagine if the roles were flipped. You may not be making Kwity Paye here to the Las Vegas Raiders.
And what was crazy about that too, real quick, is just that like Ferrell, it's not like Ferrell was like consensus edge 1 that year. Oh. Like that was a weird pick. It's not like, oh, the Raiders took the player that everyone thought was good and they were actually bad. Like, no, like we all could have told you that was a bad pick.
Yeah, and that was and it's funny because I think if Daniel Jones didn't go at 6, everyone would talk about it more. Because that draft, that was the first shocker was, wow, they went with Clelin Ferrell. But they had Clelin Ferrell was the captain at Clemson, captains under Dabo Sweeney. It's hard to do, hard to earn that. So it was all like, oh, background. And it just never really panned out here. Hollywood Dante is going to talk about his team now, the Miami Dolphins. The most picks, I think, of any team in this 3-round mock here, and you just completely rebuild this offense without, I'm assuming, paying Aaron Jones, which you don't want to do.
No, I did not pay Aaron Jones in this scenario, and I hope Chris Greer is watching because I think that this, like you said, rebuilds the offense. In a trade-back scenario, I got Jalen Waddle with the 8th pick. We talked about this on the live mock show. This is something that I did on that show as well. The Dolphins receivers, man, they just can't run. Nobody can run. Nobody can separate. It's just not great. Jalen Waddle is the epitome of that. Easy pick at pick 8, and I picked up an extra 3rd in the trade with the Panthers for next year. And then I got Elijah Vera Tucker at 18. I don't remember if I said this on the mock draft show or not, but I think he's the 2nd best offensive lineman in this class, whether you classify him as a guard or a tackle. I think the only other better player you're going to get is Penei Sewell. Good athlete, good positional versatility, length, power, everything that you could ask for. I loved Vera Tucker's film. At 36, went with Zaven Collins. This was, I believe, before they cut Kyle Van Noy. I think Collins can come in and do a little bit of the things that Van Noy did. I didn't love Collins' film, but he's the type of linebacker that the Dolphins will really like, and I think this is fine value for him, so I went with that pick. Javonte Williams at 50. I'm very anti-running back, but I love Javonte Williams' film, man. Just a ton of fun. The dude just absolutely is a home wrecker as a running back. Great power, tremendous contact balance, underrated quickness, underrated burst as well. He doesn't have great long speed, but he's pretty good over the course of like 10 to 12 yards. He can turn on the Jets a little bit. And then with Peyton Turner, the edge, the interior defensive lineman, he plays all over the line for Houston, has a really good aesthetic, by the way. He like doesn't wear any gloves, has no sleeves. He's incredibly fun. And I love.
He's the Vlad Guerrero of football, essentially.
Yes.
If that's not too old a reference for young Dante.
I know who Vlad Guerrero is. We gotta give you a little bit more credit than this. But yeah, Turner's awesome. I think Brian Flores would love a player with this type of versatility. Like this is just right up his alley as far as defensive players go. I love this draft for the Dolphins. I think that this is the best of both worlds. Would I have probably gone a different direction at pick 50 and kick the rock down the road at running back? Probably, but Javonte Williams is awesome. I would not be upset with him being the pick there at all. I think that he comes in and provides something that none of the other backs on the roster do.
I love Williams, and it's one of those things where I have Najee as my RB1 and Thor Nystrom at, so weird to say this, NBC Sports Edge, not Roto World, RIP.
You did not know that they made that change.
You did not? Twitter was losing it.
This is a shock to me. What is NBC Sports Edge?
Roto World. Yeah, NBC Sports Edge is what I'm almost 100% sure.
What?
I know, right?
No, that's unacceptable. I hate that.
Thor has him as RB1, Javonte Williams, and he wrote a novel explaining and defending it, and he laid it out very, very well. And he didn't have to, because there's a lot of people that have Javonte Williams at number 1. And I think part of that is, the crazy part with him is he only had 182 touches last year, but he had 1,400 yards between the ground and the air, almost 10 yards a touch. It's absolutely insane. I haven't seen somebody with that high of a yards per carry, and I'm not making a comp, because by all means, he's a better running back prospect than this guy. Darrell Henderson, when he came out of Memphis, that's all people talked about, was the 7.9 yards per carry.
I remember that.
How it was just him going to the Rams was going to be insane. A year later, they get Cam Akers, because Darrell Henderson ain't it. Going on to climbing the pocket's very own Tyler Fornes's Minnesota Vikings. Nice plug there for you. He's going to hate your draft, but go ahead.
I knew he would. Look, man, your team sucks to draft for.
They are impossible.
Every single one of your needs, it's not a good guard class. It's not really a good interior defensive line class. Look, at least take solace in the fact that I had the regards to trade down before I drafted Christian Barmore at 17, all right? At least I got you an extra pick, damn it. So I won credit for that, where, if you're listening to this now or later, before you yell at me. And honestly, I think Barmore, he's clarly the best interior defensive lineman in this class. There's a large gap between him and anyone else on my board, which I'm working through the interior defensive line class this week. Barmore, a ton of potential. You pick up an extra pick here. It could be worse. I love Ordarius Washington with that 78th overall pick. I think he'd be fun as hell in Mike Zimmer's defense. You can play him in the slot. You can play him in the box. You can play him over the top. Incredibly versatile player. I know our boss man, Tyler Browning, really likes him as well. Washington was my safety 2 coming into the year. I haven't done his final film, but I loved him in the summer, and I haven't seen anything that would change my mind so far. And then I just took the best guard available here with Aaron Banks. I think he comes in and he can provide, solid play. Is he the best athlete in the world? No. Is he the most powerful guy in the world? No, but he's solid. He's technically sound. I think he'll project well to that zone running scheme that they like to do in Minnesota. And then at pick 90, I went with Amari Rodgers. I thought he was maybe the best player on the board at this spot. I like getting the Vikings another receiver, getting him in there with Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson. I think he provides a little bit more of a manufactured touch element to the game. He's a very good yak player, has strong hands. He's also fast, can be a downfield target. He could also just be, the slot guy. If you want to, Justin Jefferson kind of does both. And we even see Adam Thielen do a little bit of both sometimes too. So I think this just gives you added versatility. I like this draft for the Vikings. They're a tough team to draft for, man. Just team needs do not line up well with where this draft is deep. And it makes my job incredibly difficult, but at least I made that pick with the trade down. So I felt a little bit better about it.
Yeah, whenever you're at pick like 14 in like the 12, 14 range, as a Browns fan, that gives me flashbacks to when we had to get Danny Shelton and we had to get the now tackle for the Chiefs, who I can't think of, from Florida State. That's how good he was.
Eric Fisher?
Yeah, no. He was the
No.
first round. He was the first overall pick when they drafted. Again, you were probably like in diapers in 2012 when that happened.
Really?
Uh,
Man, who
but
was?
anyway, moving on, we have Bill Belichick and his New England
Huh.
Patriots here. If you ask Bill who his stereotypical quarterback is, he's going to say Tom Brady. But I think if you asked him, and I found this leaked tape where he like was mumbling, Mac Jones is going to be our pick in the first round. And we're so him and Nick Saban are buddies. It's going to happen. But go
Oh.
ahead.
Yeah, I went Mac Jones here at pick 15. It just seems inescapable at this point that Jones is going to fall further than this. We've seen top 5 hype, top
He
10
went
hype.
6 to the Eagles in a mock I saw yesterday.
Yeah, man, like it's getting out of hand, and I think Mac is fine, but like I couldn't draft him in the top. I almost said top 100, but I'm gonna go with top 75. But I think for the Patriots, you don't really have many better options at quarterback. You want to bring Cam back, and I'm sorry, Jared, I'm just not a believer in Cam anymore. I don't think that he is good. But I think you get Mac in the building. You pair him with the 46th overall pick that I made, Kadarius Toney. Toney comes in as easily the best receiver on the roster. Natural separator, really, really good in the slot. He can provide Jones some of the things that he had at Alabama. And then with 96, I'm with Pete Warner, I think is a pretty underrated linebacker in this class, incredibly versatile. Ohio State moved him around a ton. I thought he improved a lot as well from 2019 to 2020. I thought his 2020 film was significantly better than his 2019 film. So I like him as a Patriot-style player, can move around the field a lot, fill different spots. He's a pretty decent option in coverage as well, which is something I think they could add to the second level. So this draft was tough. Patriots are tough to draft for because you feel like you have to find that quarterback. And if they're not trading up for Trey Lance or Justin Fields or Zach Wilson or whoever the heck it is, you kind of feel like they are going to settle for Mac Jones. It just feels like it's too easy.
I'm going to say it, and I was waiting for this show to pronounce it. I love Mac Jones. I don't understand. I understand. I sent the graphic yesterday. I sent the graphic yesterday that said when he's in the pocket, it was like touchdown to interception rate, completion percentage, and like yards. He was first. And then when he's outside the pocket, it was like 17th, 25th, 29th. And that's concerning. 100%. But
it's really concerning.
It really is. And the way today's NFL is. And that's the crazy part. If this was 2001, if he was in the 2007 class with Jamarcus Russell and Brady Quinn, he'd be the first overall pick.
Yeah,
but the NFL has changed, and I understand that. But at the same time, I just don't understand whenever I hear somebody say he makes all the throws, he makes all the reads, he's able to hit his guys in the chest, he leads them well, he throws them open, this, that. What I understand. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Fields or Lawrence, but him being a one-year guy with Wilson, the live arm with Wilson's the flex here, but we're going to talk about the New Orleans Saints.
Oh, no.
I didn't say anything. I didn't commit to anything.
Oh, no. You do. Oh, move on, please. I don't.
We're moving on. Don't worry. God. New Orleans Saints, our guy, Jevin Daxon, as his alter alias goes. Kelvin Joseph's a name that's been really jumping all over the place. And
yeah.
The rest of this draft is really, really nice. It really looks like a Saints draft where it's one of those ones where when you go back and look back, if they did something like this, it's like, okay, the Saints had one of the best classes again in the whole draft.
Yeah, I really like this class, even though I definitely reached for Kelvin Joseph here. He's getting a ton of first-round buzz from people who are significantly smarter than me, so I want to try and work him into the first round. That's what mock drafts are about, right, is just showing different scenarios. That's what I wanted to try to do with this one. So getting Joseph in the back end of the first round here I think is fun. He's a good athlete. I think he's a pretty traditional cover 3 corner. Pairing him with Marshawn Lattimore would be pretty nice for the Saints. I think they need corner. Like, this is not a position that I think that they'll shy away from. So getting him there was awesome. I really love the next pick, Elijah Moore at pick 60. I didn't intentionally push him down the board. It just kind of happened that way. There was a high run of receivers, and then there was a giant gap, and then another run. And Moore came off the board on that second run that ended up happening. I really like his fit, whether it's Jameis, whether it's, good God help me, Taysom Hill or Drew Brees. Quick separator, good speed threat down the field, good route runner. So I love his fit in that offense. Jordan Smith from UAB is not a player I've seen a ton of, but I liked what I saw from him at the Senior Bowl, so I felt comfortable here. The Saints could use another edge rusher. Marcus Davenport doesn't really seem like he's going to be the guy. Trey Hendrickson might leave in free agency after having a breakout season, so they might need some depth with Cam Jordan. Cam McGrone is a player that I didn't particularly love in the summer, but I've been told that he improved. So I felt okay taking him here. This is a comp pick with the 105th overall pick. He's definitely a very good athlete. I just thought he was super raw. But if he can put it together, I think the Saints need a linebacker at the second level with a little bit more juice. And juice is not McGrone's problem. He has that in spades.
As we move on to the New York Giants pick here, I would like to make a plug here again. I took my kids to a water park today, and that was not very COVID-friendly, and I apologize to President Joe Biden and the rest of America for doing that. But what I did do also, I stopped at a bookstore, and I got Flip the Script, Ed Orgeron's book. And there's a foreword in it, and it says, quit doubting Jamar Chase, he's wide receiver 1. And that's what the New York Giants get here. Quit down Jamar Chase. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was good. This is a weird thing for me because in the summer I was like, I think Jamar Chase is a little bit overrated, and now I'm like, no, Jamar Chase is still really good, guys. Like, I think we've gone too far off the deep end of Jamar Chase's bad takes. I think specifically for the Giants, right? Like, I understand the argument from the Dolphins fans who don't want Jamar Chase. They want someone with more speed. I get that because that's what we need. We have Devontae Parker, but the Giants need an alpha X receiver, and that is exactly what Jamar Chase is. A very, very good ball tracker, incredibly physical, really strong hands. I actually think he's a fine route runner, especially on the vertical tree. His horizontal route running on the horizontal plane is a little, leaves a little bit to be desired. He's not the quickest guy in the world, but he's incredibly strong. I think he's going to win down the field. Daniel Jones needs a target like this. And so I think this was a perfect fit. I love this. This is actually one of my favorite selections of the first round. 42, Joe Tarayan. The Giants just need to get more athletic at edge. They've taken some swings and misses here. Guys like Lorenzo Carter just haven't panned out as much as they want. Tryon's a guy that I like as a back end of top 50 type player, very athletic, good traits. I love that in my edge rushers. Jamin Davis, a guy who's getting a ton of run lately. I haven't gotten eyes on him just yet, but he's incredibly athletic based on what I've seen. The Giants need some more juice at the second level. Pairing him with Blake Martinez would be interesting. Those guys certainly will both cover a lot of ground. It'd be cool if Blake Martinez could actually make a tackle in the backfield once in a while instead of 8 yards down the field. But, maybe Jamin can be that guy. I think he's incredibly athletic, and the Giants still need some juice there.
Yeah, and I think, not to harp on Jamar Chase, but he's really the star of this draft here for Dave Gettleman. Daniel Jones, when he got drafted to the Giants, they had just traded Odell Beckham because he was part of that legendary first-round class that had Daniel Jones, Lawrence out of Clemson, the defensive lineman, and then DeAndre Baker, who's not even on the team anymore due to unforeseeable, really poor legal situations that he kind of got messed with on a level that I didn't really think could happen. But I think this is going to be the last year where they kind of be like, look, is Daniel Jones going to be it or not? And if you're going to do that, you have to give him a receiver, a true alpha number 1, Jamar Chase. Going across some river or road, I'm sure, in New Jersey to the New York Jets, you went with not Justin Fields at 2, but again, in a mock, you try to do what the teams are going to do. And I've been loving hearing the reports that the coaching staff wants Darnold, but Joe Douglas wants to go with a quarterback in the draft. In this situation, you went with Joe Douglas's gut. And a really, really fun draft. A lot of Ohio State guys, a lot of big names here. Like, I think even if you don't follow the draft that much, these are all picks you're going to know.
Yeah, and I think the Jets need a draft like that. Like they need to infuse this roster with talent at all three levels of both sides of the ball, in my opinion. Getting Zach Wilson with the second pick, I'm fine with that. I think Justin Fields is the second best quarterback in this class. I've been passionate about that. But if you don't know this, like Zach Wilson has been a player that I've been on since July. Like I watched Zach Wilson in July, and I was like, this kid's really good. So I still love Zach Wilson. He's like my favorite player as a fan, hands down in this class, even though I think he's quarterback 3, and I'll die on that hill. And then in the trade back scenario with the Packers, I had the Packers come up for Jeremiah Musa-Koromoa. The Jets trade down here for Terrence Marshall. I think you need to get catch point receivers with Zach Wilson. You need to get players down the field that he can target when, he's running around like a maniac and he just chucks the ball up 55 yards. And, you need those players. They have one with Denzel Mims. I think you get a second one with Terrence Marshall Jr. at LSU. At 34, they really just haven't valued the edge rusher position. I got my edge one here in Azeez Ojulari. Very good bend, very good speed, very precise with his hands. I would be shocked if he's a bust. He might not be like 10 to 15 sack type player, but I really like him. He's like a top 20 player in this class for me. I would be shocked if he's like just outright bad. I think he's going to be very good for a good amount of time. And then we talked earlier about Brevin Jordan. I'm lower on him than consensus. I did not love his film, but pairing him with Zach Wilson, I think is great. They'll need someone to kind of be that separator, hunker down guy in the middle of the field. I think Jordan gives you that while you round out the rest of his game. At 86, Trey Sermon at running back. The Jets.
I love this pick.
Yeah, I think this is a good one. I think, they're going to bring that outside zone scheme from San Francisco with Robert Saleh and Mike McDaniel. I think Sermon fits well in that. He's a good one-cut guy, had a really, really good end of the season. So I like getting Sermon here at 86. And then Shaun Wade with the extra pick that I picked up in the Packers deal. Look, the Jets need some help in the secondary. If you want to call Shaun Wade a safety and you want to play him as safety, fine. If you want to kick him into slot, the Jets need a slot corner. So I think either way, you kind of negate the he can't play outside problem because the Jets could use him at safety. The Jets could use him at slot corner. So I was good with that pick. Plus, it's 92. And I think we've gone off the deep end of like Shaun Wade is bad. I don't think his film was that bad that you should push him outside the top 100. This is a guy who's a consensus first rounder for 2 years, really. Like he could have come out last year and I think really, probably been a first rounder. So I didn't want to push him too far down the board. I think the Jets get a steal here.
So you talked about kicking Shaun Wade. So kicking him to the curb is not what you would suggest here.
Not at all. Nope.
Now, before we move on to the happiest fan base in the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles, you talking bad about your boy Zach Wilson brought this up to me. So for everyone watching or will watch this years from now, this is Dante whenever he talks bad about Zach Wilson.
It hurts me, man. It really does. I'm out here every day now on the Twitter streets. I got to like hate on my boy Zach Wilson. It's like,
you're not on the Twitter streets defending him, but you're on the Twitter alleys.
Yeah,
man. You're not on the streets where there's traffic.
You're
fighting cats in the garbage cans and all that jazz.
Yeah.
Earlier today, Kyle Pitts tweeted, "When it's all said and done, I'll be the greatest ever." I don't know if he does that in Philadelphia.
Oh man, that was a rude.
I love Kyle Pitts. The Florida fan in me loves Kyle Pitts. The analyst in me loves Kyle Pitts. I think he's one of the most talented guys in this entire draft. Lots of good picks here though to help Jalen Hurts. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is actually might be my favorite total haul of the group. I would have preferred to draft a quarterback here, but I've done that like 100 times. So I wanted to go in a different direction. And I think Kyle Pitts is a player who, look, he's basically a wide receiver, and that's not a knock on his blocking. I think he's a fine blocker, but I think that the Eagles have a really good blocking tight end in Dallas Goedert. So I think bringing him in to be just a guy who's going to separate and make big plays for you. They need that player, man, especially if you're going to run with Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I think they need that, and Pitts brings that to the table. I think he's one of the 5 best players in this class overall. Eric Stokes at 37 just ran a 4.29 today. Apparently, I don't know how I feel about that, but he is fast regardless, and I think he's a very, very good cornerback prospect. I think he's the best Georgia secondary member in this group. Really, really like what he brings to the table. I think he's a perfect CB2 next to Darius Slay. Amon-Ra St. Brown is another guy, easy separator in the slot, good route runner, potential deep threat, good hands. Hurts needs these players. They're going to separate quickly. You want to get the ball out of his hands as quickly as humanly possible. Pitts lets you do that. St. Brown lets you do that. With the 84th pick, went with Chaz Surratt. Did not expect him to fall this far. He did not run a good 40 today. Not that I care, because I think he's incredibly fast on film. I think he's very athletic. I've seen Surratt in person. I've seen him move. I'm confident in my evaluation that he is a better mover than that. And I think the Eagles desperately need juice on the second level. Nate Gary is horrible. Alex Singleton is not good. Sean Bradley's interesting out of Temple. I think he might actually be the second best linebacker on the team, but they need somebody else there. And I think Surratt gives you that athleticism and that range that modern defenses need.
Now, I know how I said about Kyle Pitts there. I think it's only because of the Jalen Hurts factor is what concerns me. But no, yes. I think getting someone like St. Brown is a perfect complement to Reagor, whether you believe in Reagor or not. I think that's a very good positive, negative battery type situation here. As I look at batteries on my desk to come up with that analogy. But Kyle Pitts, like you talked about, being a top 5 player in this class, he could be in light tight end, offline. You can even throw him out receiver if you want to do like a red zone sort of situation. I mean, the things you can do with Kyle Pitts are just limitless. On to my favorite, happiest, everyone loves me on Twitter team, Pittsburgh Steelers. No quarterback for you. You get lanky old Big Ben hunkin' Roethlisberger behind a very big and impressively built Tevin Jenkins here at 24. Go ahead and talk about him a little bit, Dante.
Yeah, the idea, especially with these first 2 picks, was just like, look, if they're going to start Ben Roethlisberger next year, and I'll take the heat off you a little bit here, I don't think he's very good anymore. So, we're in agreement there. If you are going to start him, though, you need to bolster the offensive line, and you need to get him a legit weapon in the backfield, and that's what I went with here. I went with Tevin Jenkins, who I think is just an absolute mauler, an absolute ass kicker at tackle. He needs to work on maybe his deeper sets, but his short sets are quite good. I would not be surprised if he ends up being one of the better tackles to come out of this class. He's incredibly good, ranked much higher on my board than I thought. Pick 55, went with Michael Carter, and this breaks my heart as an Anthony McFarland fan. Like, I loved Anthony McFarland out of Maryland, but he just did not seem to get it going last year. But I think pairing him and Carter in the backfield gives you a ton of juice back there. Carter is a very, very good pass catcher, can be a check down target for the Steelers, which I think something in Ben's age, I think he needs, and Carter provides that. So I like that value and fit. Jay Tufele is a player that I really loved. He opted out of the 2019 season. I loved his summer film. He's got like a really solid second-round grade on my board, so this was good value. The Steelers have a couple guys who are moving on that interior. I think Tufele comes in. I think he's a really, really solid run defender. I think he's got some nice pass rush upside at the end of the day. So I actually really love this 3-round mock for the Steelers. This is another one of my favorite hauls in the class.
Yeah, they have Tyson Alualu, who's a free agent, and I think Tufele is literally the same player. And Alualu, who was a top 10 pick in Jacksonville way back when, not sure. Again, I'm going far back for you. But I think Alualu had his best years in Pittsburgh between Watt and Hayward, and I think Tufele would be a very nice supplement there. Going on to the San Francisco 49ers, I got one last book for you, Dante. It's Bruce Arians, the quarterback whisperer.
Wow.
I love BA. He is my favorite coach in the NFL. He is not the quarterback whisperer. Kyle Shanahan is. He got Kirk Cousins paid. He got Matt Ryan MVP. And now he gets Justin Fields.
Yeah. So this was my, I had Justin Fields fall to be the 4th quarterback off the board, and me saying sorry to Justin Fields was you get to go play with Kyle Shanahan. I had the 49ers trade up with the Detroit Lions here to select Justin Fields. The prospect of Kyle Shanahan playing with an actual quarterback with a functional arm is incredibly appealing to me, given like what you just said he did, like literally got to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. Matt Ryan has a functional arm. I don't want to make it sound like he doesn't, but he turned Matt Ryan into MVP, and I think Justin Fields significantly better physical traits than Matt Ryan, and we've talked about a bunch kind of offhand that why I think Justin Fields is QB2 in this class. So I love this pick. This is my favorite pick of the entire draft. I might have said that a couple times, but this is actually my favorite pick of the entire draft. Yeah, I love this. This is as perfect as it could possibly get. At 43, with Aaron Robinson, the cornerback out of UCF, they need to address that room. Richard Sherman's probably moving on, so this was just best player here at a position of need. Then with Javon Holland, who also kind of addresses that room. Holland listed as a safety by most people. I've done his final film eval. He graded out higher as a slot corner for me than a safety. I don't really think he plays safety for Oregon, so he provides the 49ers with a versatile body. They need help at safety and at corner. So if you want to play him in the slot, you play him in the slot. If you want to play him at safety, you play him at safety. I wasn't a big fan of Holland's film. I think 102 is fine value for him. The 49ers need the help, but that Justin Fields pick, man, I really don't think the rest of the picks matter if Fields is a hit. If he comes in and he's a franchise quarterback, the rest of the picks don't matter. So I feel really good about that one.
He's like I feel like if he goes at 7 here to San Francisco, we have that class with Rosen, Darnold, Mayfield, and Lamar, and how Josh Allen's in there too. And Allen's really become not the star, but the best NFL quarterback of that group. I think that's safe to say, even with Lamar having an MVP. And I think that's what Fields would be, where in this group you have, and not that Fields isn't a big name, but you have Wilson, who's getting nonstop talk because he's getting the Mahomes comp. And I have a way better comp that I'm going to debut, and I cannot wait for people to absolutely hate me for it. You have Trey Lance, who has less, about the same amount as Trubisky coming out as far as starts goes. And then you have obviously Trevor Lawrence, who deservedly so, he's number 1. But I think Fields is going to be the one where the Jets are going to be like, damn, and I think the Panthers are going to be like, mega damn. And then Kyle Shanahan's going to finally get that Super Bowl ring, and it's going to be okay. Quick side note here, too. I am still watching corners. I absolutely loved Aaron Robinson. I watched him last week, and I think he's a really good corner that can mirror well, plays with length. He's pretty big, too. He's definitely a 49er corner. Speaking of corners, who normally draft corners, the Seattle Seahawks, Josh Snyder with his lone pick. He doesn't get the Bill O'Brien Houston Texans treatment because his first-round pick went to Jamal Adams, and I think that's paid off very nicely considering where it would be. So here, I'll let you talk about Carlos Basham a little bit.
Yeah, I think Basham's a player who the Seahawks would really like. Inside-outside rush versatility up front. They need to add to their pass rush. He just strikes me as a Seahawk, tough 4-year player, somebody that they'll really value in his versatility. This pick was pretty easy for me when I saw Basham on the board. I think this is a position of need. I think he fits really well. Not sure you want him, as a stand-up guy rushing the outside arc a ton, but he does just about everything else pretty well. I think he comes in. He's a solid option up front. And again, they don't have a lot of draft capital. So I think getting a player like Basham who can come in and contribute early should be a high priority.
Yeah, and I mean, if they trade Russell Wilson, they might have some more draft capital, but I digress. Moving on to the team coached by the best coach in the NFL, Bruce Arians, Mr. B.A. Go ahead, Dante.
We've been recording for too long now. Oh, man. Travis Etienne, pick 32, the second running back, and then the last running back to go in the first round. Kind of a similar argument that I made to Buffalo in that I think the Buccaneers might look at this and just go, you know what, we want to add another explosive playmaker to this offense. We're going to make our offense, accentuate a strength as a strength. Get Travis Etienne. He adds an element of speed that they don't currently have. They were parting ways with Leonard Fournette, and he's not fast anyway. I don't even think he's good, if we're being honest. So. That offensive line, literally, they ran duo the entire time, and he just picked up 7 yards. Whatever. Quincy Roche, pick 64, player I'm very familiar with. I've spent a ton of time not only watching him in person, but also talking to him in person. I'm incredibly familiar with the person and the player. I think that he's going to be at least a successful player in the NFL at the very minimum. Very, very good technique, very smart player. I know how hard he works. He works on his game. I like him here at pick 64. Shaq Barrett's kind of a guy who might get extended, might have to play on the franchise tag. I don't know what they're doing there. Roche's a guy who comes in. I think he's really, really solid. He adds to an already good group up front. Same type of argument for Marlon Tuipulotu. Some are higher on him than me. I think he's primarily a two-down run defender right now. I'm not sure how much pass rush juice he gives you, but he certainly has the athletic profile to develop that part of his game. So I like this pick at 98.
I remember for years it was Andy Reid needs to get his Brian Westbrook, and they thought they got it with Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Mm-hmm. The other thing is Bruce Arians needs his new David Johnson, and I think Travis Etienne could be that, especially with that offense with the way Tom likes to dump it off to running backs and also have a physical runner. I think you can have both of that with Etienne. Going to Tennessee, I'm really excited to hear you talk about Nixon here because you and I were kind of bonding over him the other day.
Yeah.
And then they also had a former top corner from last year's class fall to them at 100.
Yeah, the 22nd pick, I'm not sure I love that one with Joseph Asai, but I think it was the best player on the board at a position of need. They need more juice. They've been trying to get this kind of like stand-up edge linebacker hybrid type player. They tried Vic Beasley. They tried Javion Clowney. Let's go to the draft this time. Get Asai. He's got a ton of juice, linebacker edge experience. I made this Davion Nixon pick before I watched his film because I watched his film, I think yesterday we talked about him, right?
Yes.
I love this film. I thought it was really good. I was incredibly impressed with how athletic he was, how quick he was, how explosive he was. I thought he converted speed to power really well. And I thought he was a really, really good run defender. I'm going to write about him on bluechipscouting.com if you've lasted this long in the live stream. I'm going to write about him either Monday or Tuesday. We'll have an article up about him. I was really impressed with this film. I would draft him higher than this, frankly. And then Diami Brown, I think they could use another downfield target. This is kind of potential replacement for Corey Davis. Not the same type of player, but Brown's a really, really good deep ball tracker. I think he could win on deep over routes if they keep the same offensive structure intact. And then with the 100th overall pick, I think you have Paulson Debo. But Adebo, man, I really wish he would have played this year because, you go back 2 years, Adebo, one of the best corners in the country. 2019, I don't think he was as bad as people said, but he certainly wasn't good at some of his worst games on film. I think he still provides you with a very solid, CB2, CB3 in a zone scheme. I think he's got really good instincts and really good ball skills. So I think he can still do those things for you. And to pick 100, I think that's fair value.
Moving on, because I'm sure you're getting very hoarse here, Dante. You've done a very fantastic job.
Can you tell?
Doing all the talking for an hour and 25 minutes.
Woo!
Talk about the NFC East division champions. Just talk to me about, this is what I'm really curious about. We know what Devontae Smith is. We've heard about Dylan Radons out of North Dakota State, Trey Lance's star tackle. Talk to me about Hamza and Benjamin St-Juste, if you're a Washington fan.
Yeah, just, Smith falling to 19, I don't think it happens, but it could because he's small. Raduns, I thought was the best tackle on the board, and they need one of those. For me, Nasruddin, he was my safety one coming into the year, coming off of an injury. He only played in 2 games this year. I think that you have to take a chance on a player like this, and I feel comfortable sending him to Washington because I really like the defensive minds in the room there. And I feel comfortable that they'll be able to find a good spot for him. Guys that are as big as he is do not move as well as he does very often. This is an Isaiah Simmons ballpark athlete. I don't think he's as good as Isaiah Simmons. Don't think he's as good as athlete as Isaiah Simmons, but he's in that mold and he's in that ballpark. And I feel comfortable sending him to a place like Washington where they'll find the best spot for him, whether that is linebacker, overhang slot, whether that is, he can, I think he's got good range. He can provide some value in deep zone. So I feel comfortable sending him there. Benjamin St-Juste, I have not watched a ton of his film. I've got about 1 game under my belt. A couple things that stood out to me, though. I think he honestly reminds me a lot of Ronald Darby, who's a player that is already on the team. So that's kind of what drew me to this pick. Very physical, good size. If he just learned to turn his head and look for the ball, I think he'd be significantly better. And that is also was my complaint with Ronald Darby in Philly. I live in Philly, so I get to see a lot of Eagles stuff, and that was something that stood out to me with Ronald Darby. So that comp was kind of in my head when I was making this pick, but I still need to do a final film eval on St-Juste. But I think Washington needs to invest in corner regardless.
Just to throw you one last curveball here, Dante.
Go for it.
St. Juice got a UDFA for me.
Really? Yeah, I've only watched one
did not
game.
like anything I was
Wow.
seeing. I mean, I can't. I don't have my notes up here, and it's been at this point you have so many players in your head, but I just
Yeah.
like you talked about looking at the ball, the instincts aren't there. I didn't think
Yeah,
tackling
that was the thing that popped out to me, man. It's just like because he panics too. That's the other thing that I
he would
noticed.
get behind a guy on a route, and
Yeah,
it would just be like I could hear him with every step going, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit.
yeah,
And it's just not good.
yeah. I mean, if he just realized that if he turned his head and went like this, he wouldn't have to
Oh,
panic because he'd have a PBU. Yeah, it's because it's like, dude, you're there. Like you're physically like you're fine. Like just look, But yeah, I got to get into his final film. UDFA, that's bold. I might keep that take to myself, and Tyler might Forno might get on you for that. That's one of his Minnesota guys.
I'm sure I'll hear about it after the fact. Dante, it was a blast. We're going to be doing more of these as the guys do mock drafts. Hopefully they won't be as long because they won't all be 3-rounders. But that being said, lots of fun names if you're a draft fan, lots of good names if you're a fan of any of these 32 teams. We will have timestamps when we edit this up a little bit. So if you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can just click your team, go to your timestamp, and you can hear the little spew. So for anybody who missed their pick and tuned in late, we appreciate it. We'll get back with you on the timestamps, and we will catch you on the next one.